The annual Royal Children's Foundation Christmas Ball was the pinnacle of British high society, an invitation-only gathering that attracted aristocrats, business titans, and celebrities who'd earned their way into the most exclusive charitable circles. My family had spent 3 years cultivating connections to secure tonight's coveted invitations. "Remember," Mom whispered sharply as we approached the Savoy Hotel's grand ballroom, "this is about representing the family appropriately. Some opportunities require absolute discretion." The warning was directed entirely at me, the family member whose unconventional career path threatened their carefully constructed image of respectability and social climbing success. "Victoria should stay near the back," my sister Penelope murmured, adjusting her tiara borrowed from our grandmother's jewelry collection. "Behind the decorative screens, perhaps, where she won't accidentally engage with anyone important." At 27, I'd become accustomed to my role as the family's hidden liability during prestigious events. While Penelope's marriage to a minor lord had earned them entry into aristocratic social circles, my technology company remained embarrassingly modern for their aspirations toward old-money respectability. Penelope's presentation to the Duchess of Cambridge went beautifully, Dad announced proudly to Lord Hamilton, whose wife chaired the foundation's board. "She's establishing herself perfectly in charitable leadership roles." Lord Hamilton nodded approvingly while studying Penelope's elegant positioning near the ballroom center, where photographers would capture her among the evening's most distinguished guests. "And your younger daughter?" Lady Hamilton inquired politely, glancing around the opulent space. "Victoria's exploring various interests," Mom replied diplomatically, "still finding her direction. We didn't want her to feel overwhelmed by this level of social responsibility." Overwhelmed by social responsibility. The phrase suggested I was too immature or unstable to handle interactions with actual nobility, rather than deliberately excluded because my success didn't fit their narrative of proper achievement. "Young people today have such unconventional ideas about careers," Lord Hamilton observed with paternal tolerance. "Technology ventures, startup companies, very different from the established paths that create lasting value." "Exactly our concern," Dad agreed emphatically. "Victoria's brilliant, but she needs to understand that real influence comes from working within traditional institutions. Not these modern experiments that disappear as quickly as they appear." Traditional institutions. While I'd been building Quantum Leap Industries, my family had been pursuing social advancement through charity committees, aristocratic marriages, and proximity to inherited wealth rather than created value. Through the Savoy's magnificent ballroom windows, I could see the Thames sparkling under December's early evening lights. Security boats dotted the river. Unusual patrol activity that suggested tonight's guest list included someone requiring extraordinary protection protocols. "The Foundation's work is so important," Penelope was explaining to a gathered circle of minor royalty and major donors. "Children's healthcare, education initiatives, sustainable development, causes that require serious commitment from established leaders." Established leaders. The implication that meaningful charitable work demanded traditional credentials rather than actual resources or innovative solutions to complex problems. "Victoria's still in that experimental phase," Mom added apologetically when someone noticed the fourth name on their invitation. "We're hoping she'll eventually gravitate toward something more substantial." Substantial. Quantum Leap's quantum computing breakthroughs had attracted partnerships with universities, government agencies, and multinational corporations seeking to solve previously impossible computational challenges. But quantum physics apparently seemed less substantial than charity committee membership. My phone buzzed discreetly with a message from my assistant. "Security detail confirmed. Royal arrival in 12 minutes. Protocol briefing complete." The protocol briefing. What my family didn't understand was that tonight's invitation hadn't come through their social climbing efforts. The Royal Children's Foundation had specifically requested my attendance, not as Penelope's sister or my parents' daughter, but as Quantum Leap Industries founder and the youngest recipient of the Queen's Award for Innovation in Technology. "We should position ourselves near the main entrance," Dad strategized quietly. "When the senior royals arrive, we want to be visible. This kind of proximity could transform our social standing permanently." Proximity to royalty. They'd spent months preparing for this moment. The photograph opportunity, the brief conversation, the social validation that would cement their acceptance into Britain's upper echelons. "Victoria, please stay behind the decorative screen," Mom instructed with finality. "We can't risk any complications tonight. This is too important for our family's reputation." Behind the decorative screen, where I'd have an excellent view of their faces when they discovered why the Crown Prince had specifically inquired about my presence at tonight's gathering. The ballroom filled with Britain's most influential families, each group positioning themselves strategically for maximum visibility when the royal family arrived. My parents and Penelope had secured prime real estate near the main entrance, while I remained dutifully hidden behind an ornate Victorian screen that provided perfect concealment and excellent acoustics. "Did you see the Duke of Westminster's donation announcement?" Penelope whispered excitedly to her aristocratic circle. £50 million to children's health care. That's the kind of commitment that catches royal attention. Her audience murmured appreciatively, understanding that tonight's gathering served dual purposes: charitable fundraising and social positioning among Britain's power structure. The Foundation's board specifically invited the most significant contributors, Lady Pemberton observed knowingly. Tonight's guest list represents the pinnacle of British philanthropy and business leadership. Significant contributors. Quantum Leap had quietly donated over £200 million to various children's charities over the past 3 years. But since our giving didn't require gala announcements or society page coverage, it remained invisible to their understanding of meaningful philanthropy. Penelope's volunteer work has been exceptional, Mom announced to anyone within earshot. Organizing events, coordinating with noble families, really establishing herself in the right circles. The right circles. While Penelope had organized tea parties and fundraising luncheons, I'd been developing quantum algorithms that could revolutionize medical research, climate modeling, and financial security systems that protected millions of children's futures. "One does hope the royals will have time for individual conversations," Dad mused strategically. "Personal connections with the Crown Prince could open extraordinary doors for our family's charitable ambitions." Personal connections with the Crown Prince. The irony would have been amusing if it weren't so representative of their fundamental misunderstanding about how royal engagements actually worked. Through my concealment behind the decorative screen, I could hear the increasing excitement as security personnel began their final preparations. Earpieces, discreet positioning, the kind of coordinated protection that suggested imminent VIP arrival. "Security seems unusually extensive tonight," Lord Hamilton observed to my father. "Must be expecting senior members of the family. Perhaps the Prince of Wales himself." "Extraordinary opportunity," Dad agreed enthusiastically. "Being in the same room with that level of royalty, it validates everything we've worked to achieve socially." Everything they'd worked to achieve. 3 years of charity committee memberships, society event attendance, and careful cultivation of aristocratic acquaintances had led to this moment of potential royal proximity. My phone vibrated with another message from my assistant. "Crown Prince specifically requested private meeting before public reception. Royal protection officers coordinating discreet protocol. Private meeting before public reception." What my family understood as their moment of social triumph was actually the prelude to a working discussion about Quantum Leap's collaboration with the Royal Foundation's technology initiatives. "The invitation list is remarkably exclusive," Penelope was explaining to the Duchess of Marlborough. "Only the most established families, the most significant philanthropists. We feel incredibly honored to be included." Most established families. The Royal Foundation's actual criteria had focused on innovation, technological contribution, and transformative impact on children's welfare globally. Measurements that valued created wealth and scientific advancement over inherited titles and social positioning. "Victoria would be so impressed by this gathering," Mom mentioned with maternal condescension to Lady Pemberton. "Perhaps seeing real success, real influence, might inspire her toward more traditional achievement paths." Real influence. From my position behind the decorative screen, I could see royal protection officers conducting final security sweeps, their movements indicating immediate arrival of someone requiring the highest level of governmental protection. "The quantum computing sector is fascinating," I overheard the Duke of Cambridge mentioning to a small group near the champagne fountain. "Particularly the work being done with children's medical research. Revolutionary potential for pediatric treatment development." revolutionary potential. The conversation was drifting toward exactly the technological applications that had earned Quantum Leap international recognition and apparently royal interest. Such complex technology, Lady Hamilton replied diplomatically. One imagines it requires extraordinary expertise to understand practical applications. Extraordinary expertise. In approximately 4 minutes, my family's comfortable evening of social climbing was about to encounter the person whose expertise the Crown Prince had specifically requested to discuss. The ballroom's main doors opened with ceremonial precision. Royal fanfare began. And my family's understanding of who belonged in elite circles was about to require fundamental revision. The royal procession entered with practiced ceremonial elegance. The Crown Prince accompanied by senior members of the Royal Foundation's board, security detail maintaining discreet but visible protection protocols. The ballroom's distinguished guests immediately formed receiving lines according to social precedents and charitable contribution rankings. Your Royal Highness, the Foundation president announced formally, we're honored by your presence at tonight's gathering of Britain's most dedicated philanthropists and innovators. The Crown Prince acknowledged the gathered crowd graciously before his eyes began scanning the ballroom methodically. He was clearly looking for someone specific. I believe Ms. Victoria Sterling was invited tonight? He inquired directly of the Foundation president, his voice carrying the kind of authority that transforms casual questions into immediate priorities. Ms. Victoria Sterling. The name echoed across the ballroom's suddenly silent space as distinguished guests tried to identify whoever had earned such direct royal attention. My family froze completely. Penelope's confident networking smile died mid-conversation. Mom's strategic positioning near the entrance became awkward exposure rather than advantageous visibility. Victoria Sterling, founder of Quantum Leap Industries, the Foundation president clarified for the gathered audience. This year's Queen's Award recipient for innovation in technology. Ah yes, the Crown Prince continued, we've been following her quantum computing applications in pediatric medicine. Quite revolutionary work. The Royal Foundation is particularly interested in discussing expansion of her children's healthcare algorithms. The ballroom's attention shifted immediately toward my family, since my surname had clearly connected me to their party. But their confident social positioning had just revealed they had no idea who the Crown Prince was actually seeking. Your Highness, Dad stammered weakly, Victoria is. She's somewhere in the ballroom. Behind the decorative screen actually, I said clearly, stepping forward from my assigned concealment. Good evening, Your Royal Highness. Thank you for requesting tonight's meeting. The ballroom's reaction was immediate and electric. Cameras appeared discreetly as society photographers recognized a genuine news story developing in real time. Miss Sterling, the Crown Prince smiled warmly, extending his hand in greeting. We've been eager to discuss your quantum algorithms for predicting childhood cancer patterns. The medical research applications are extraordinary. My family stood frozen in their receiving line formation, watching their hidden liability transform into the evening's guest of honor. Your technology has already improved diagnostic accuracy for pediatric patients by 43%, he continued, clearly well briefed on Quantum Leap's medical applications. The Royal Foundation would like to expand this partnership globally. While my family had been pursuing social climbing through charity committee memberships, I'd been building technology platforms that the royal family considered essential to their children's welfare initiatives. Ladies and gentlemen, the Foundation president announced to the gathering, please join His Royal Highness in recognizing Miss Sterling's extraordinary contributions to children's healthcare through revolutionary technology. The applause was thunderous. The confusion on my family's faces was absolute. Shall we continue our discussion privately? The Crown Prince suggested, gesturing toward the Savoy's private dining room where royal meetings typically occurred. Of course, Your Royal Highness. As I walked toward the private dining room with the Crown Prince and his entourage, I could hear my family's desperate attempts to explain to fellow guests that they were, indeed, related to the evening's honored guest, the same person they'd hidden behind decorative screens because she supposedly wasn't ready for elite social circles. Their society had crumbled instantly. Mine had just expanded to include actual royalty. The aftermath was swift and absolute. Within hours, Every major British newspaper was covering the Crown Prince's surprise announcement of Quantum Leap's expanded partnership with the Royal Foundation. The photos from the Savoy showed me in private consultation with royalty while my family stood bewildered in the background. Penelope's carefully cultivated aristocratic connections evaporated when her circle discovered she'd spent months dismissing her billionaire sister as not ready for high society. Her charity committee positions became awkward reminders that she'd overlooked the foundation's most significant technology partner. Dad's business contacts in traditional finance struggled to explain why they'd been networking with someone who'd systematically underestimated Britain's youngest Queen's Award recipient. Corporate partnerships require recognizing actual innovation, not just inherited wealth. Mom's society friendships cooled rapidly when other families realized the Sterlings had hidden their connection to someone the royal family considered essential to their charitable mission. Social climbing requires accurate assessment of who's actually worth knowing. The decorative screen became a family legend, the last barrier between their comfortable assumptions and reality's intervention. Society photographers had captured the moment when their hidden liability revealed herself as the evening's purpose. 6 months later, Quantum Leap's quantum computing applications had revolutionized pediatric medicine across the Commonwealth. My family attended the palace ceremony where I received the Order of the British Empire for services to children's health care. They sat in the front row, finally understanding which family member had actually been ready for elite circles all along. Sometimes royal recognition clarifies social hierarchies. Sometimes the family disappointment was already on the Queen's honors list.